In an ever-evolving digital landscape, for your business to thrive, you must adapt or die. Welcome to Marketing in the Age of AI, the podcast helping you harness the power of AI and marketing tools to revitalize and grow your business. And now here's your host, marketing expert and author of Authentic Marketing in the Age of AI, Emmanuel Rose.
Welcome to this episode of Marketing in the Age of AI. Today, we're going to dig into tech startups, tech go-to-market marketing, and about how we can emulate best practices in this super dynamic environment that we have with AI changing everything that we do in the marketing area. My guest today is Grady Teske, a fractional CMO and founder of Rising Tides, a marketing agency dedicated to helping SaaS startups scale. With over 15 years of experience and having launched more than 240 tech companies, Grady has developed an automated growth engine that transforms unpredictable sales into reliable, AI-managed, content-driven marketing systems. He's passionate about empowering B2B tech founders to create conversational systems that connect customers with products, fostering sustainable growth. Grady is also working on Build Distribution, a book that challenges founders to rethink their approach to scaling. And I'm super excited to have you on the show today, Grady, and thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, I'm excited to join. Anytime we can talk about how AI is affecting marketing, I guess that's basically every conversation I have now. But like, what's great about it right now, and I'm sure you'll agree, Emmanuel, is that like every person we can talk about it is doing it slightly different, and we can take away a lot from that conversation, start to apply it ourselves. And we're at the stage where there's almost like no bad ideas, right? Oh, well, I mean some, but most of them are pretty good ideas. The only bad ideas are following what too many people are doing. Like as long as you're forging ahead and I think trying new things, there's really no bad ideas. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting in some ways, marketing has gotten really technical now, right?
Oh, yeah.
My thing is what I believe and what I've seen is that small businesses kind of secret power in marketing is the founder story, the consumer support story, the customer service, and the involvement in the community, and these really kind of emotional connections. And we got to stay focused on that, but yet build it by building custom GPTs to do it.
Yeah. I think, and the great way to look at that is it's really not that much different than what we've done before. I think as business owners and founders, like as you start to build and scale your company, you lose control is not a good point, but you invite others in to help build the persona and share more about you, which strips away a little bit of your bias. And every employee that you have that comes in and helps build out that story changes a little bit, makes it more accessible. And I think a lot of what marketing does too is like alignment based. So it's like taking what we think is really important to us as business owners and then combining that with the people we care about, what they think about us and the positions that we have and what they need from us. And then kind of like coming to a merged identity. And I use that as an example because what we're finding now is one of the best places to remove your bias is to use AI tools. Like AI doesn't bring in even the bias of what someone who you hire or ultimately like subcontract to work within you. They all have inherent bias with working with you. And AI, I think this is my learning this week. AI gets me a lot of places faster because I see completely unbiased results, which means that a lot of times I get to both success and failure faster. And sometimes I can get to a complete change of directions like really quick. And so like, that's one of my favorite things about AI this week is just inherently how it like takes away a lot of the human bias that I would have in marketing or doing sales outreach or things like that. So it's great.
Yeah, and what I learned this week was looking at letting it letting the my custom GPTs develop content for me in the correct structures, right? Like,
Mm. Oh, I
so I'm
love
working
that.
on a
Yeah.
campaign for a piece of software I'm developing, and I was like, build a brand narrative, build a LinkedIn post about my challenges, and then now reconvert that into a viral X post, and it just went through and
Yeah.
it did the thing, right? And because I don't want to go and study the top 50 X posts, and
Yeah.
the way everybody does that with the catchy headline and the picture, and then you click through and 10 steps and all that stuff. But
Yeah.
that Crankstout has no emotional opinion about it at all.
Yeah, and there's a definite content format to top performing content, regardless of platform today. To be honest, like myself, I can't say so much for our clients, but myself and the agency, we don't use any AI for creative. We use AI constantly in the editorial and repackaging
Yep.
process.
Yep.
Like you said, we for one of the earliest GPTs we developed was looking at newsletters. We basically signed it up for a ton of different top performing newsletters, and we
Nice.
had it breaking down what's the structure like, what's the average word count, where are they putting call to actions, and we started really ripping out like what we found to be a good format for creating newsletters. And I use that. In fact, I just used that 20 minutes ago. I worked on my newsletter this week, and I made a YouTube video about this. Like the whole process now is go to my recorded calls, think about the topics that drove a lot of interest between me and the people in the calls. Then we
Yep.
pull transcripts from that, run it through, put it into that new tool that helps then structure the content. And then I kind of rewrite it a little bit. And then I actually have another GPT on that and almost all of my content where I basically say, like, all right, now, like, let's dumb this down and make it, it's a simple prompt. Let's make it sound like we've worked together for years, me and the reader, and I'm turning over during my lunch break and I'm sharing something about him that I just found this morning. Really
Right.
basic, super
Yep.
simple. And it just like, you'd be surprised even how small prompts like that make a really big impact in, I guess, your relatability and also like, the ability to like create content quickly. So, but yeah, I think one of the big unlocks for me, I'm curious to see if you've seen this as well, is that like, just so we talked about there, one of the big unlocks for me this year has been like maybe more GPTs and smaller put into a workflow. And I can get to success a lot faster when I'm breaking it down that way, right?
Yeah. Well, and the reason I laugh is because you're building into agents, right? You're
Yes.
building
Yeah.
into these agentifying with a
Agentic
managing agent.
workflows. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's like, are we designing these, or is the software now designing the way we think about things?
Yeah, I think we again we talked on our team's call this morning about like there's vibe marketing and vibe coding is a big thing if you follow the narratives around
Yeah.
AI. And I
Right.
think what's unique about that is when I see, and there's a lot of content about this, it's like, how can I take AI and get to someplace faster? But
Yep.
where I think a real distinguisher is like the control aspect of it, like really looking at how we're utilizing it within other things as a resource, as an alternative to humans. One of our clients actually at Rising Tides is a human-based platform that allows you to test results against AI, which I think is really interesting from a developer standpoint.
Yep.
Um, and so, in being introduced to that, I started to think about like the things that I do. And now, when we try to replicate new agents, build new agentic workflows, a lot of times I do it with the human side and I do it with the agent side. I look at the results. One of the areas we just did that this week was like we fully incorporated an outreach workflow now that we can put in place for us and then for our clients really quick. What's great about it is it's not going to like actually replicate or take over what an entire salesperson does or a
Right.
department of a marketing team. But what it does do is it like allows us to get to market quicker and to a lot of results faster. And this is where I got that learning is the unbiased aspect. It's we're able to go out and quickly connect with people and do it in a way that like allows us to look at the responses, helps us formulate the message and review audience fast. So we know long term, like this isn't the solution, it's just to have an agentic outreach tool. It's
Right.
really about like how can we quickly help people build identity by introducing them to a bunch of people, right? the agent, if I'm even more specific about it, the agent is the old adage, going out and doing 100 founder interviews and getting that feedback and then building brand and identity off of that. So again, now ultimately really simple to put through. And what are the also byproducts of it too? Because it's just unbiased and it works in like, anytime, all time on. It's also helping people figure out the channels and the acquisition a lot faster too.
Sure.
So it's when you put them in space, and I think as marketers too, like you said, we're increasingly becoming more technical all the time, maybe even somewhat of a software developer, but definitely
for sure.
but we also have to really maintain that idea of that we're like scientists at heart. We're always coming with an idea of a hypothesis of who we are, and then we're letting conditions kind of dictate what the results of that are. And AI can do that so much faster, right? So
Yeah, I love it. And the rapid prototyping that we have access to, right? Where you can have, like, I just happened to me this last week, which is I had an idea for a visualization tool. I went into Lovable. I built a really rough, not even MVP, just a rough
yeah,
sketch of it. I presented it in a prospect meeting, and just as part of my presentation, they're like, the only thing that made sense to us was that visualization that you had. Like,
yeah,
oh, I think I have something here. And
yeah,
then, spent the last 7 days cleaning it up in Lovable, and then got it as far as I can because I am not a programmer, right?
sure,
I'm a marketing
sure,
guy.
yeah.
And then I'm like, send it off to dev, and like, you guys solve it now. So that rapid prototyping we've never had before at this level.
Yeah. Yeah, and for leads, business owners, founders, it makes it like the time to get your idea down or your hypothesis down and get it like into a test is like really minimal. Like you said, and again, this is a lot of what marketing is especially with the early stage companies I work with. It's about getting out and testing hypotheses, seeing what's working, and then like scaling off of that. So like really it helps us get out and get out there really fast and get results. I remember when I first started as a fractional and working with agency teams, you'd onboard an agency and your first movement in market might be 30 to 45 days sometimes. Now, especially with this workflow we did last week, now we can bring somebody in, we've got 5 questions and we can have live campaigns with them in 25 minutes. And honestly, like the SaaS sign up is the longest part of that. So,
Yeah.
so the time to get to market is so fast, but also you can test and validate these different models. And I think the other thing that's really unique, like right off the top, we talked a little bit about like, as long as you're not following, I think you're winning, right? Is that one of the issues that I've always had is, for instance, let's talk about like databases, right? When it comes to audience building as a whole, we're always working with vetted and well-worked databases, right? Like if you're building off of somebody else's list, even if it's an enrichment through Apollo and Clay, you're ultimately treading where a lot of people have tread before. But now, like with AI agents, we can actually replicate a lot of that quicker. Because if you think about like the blended history of what sales does, the role used to be a lot of time prospecting, lead generation, looking up the background information, finding how that verification fits. I mean, now we've built workflows around those that can do those things in just second at mass amounts. And so when it comes to like, actually people will ask me like, where do you build audiences from? I'm like, well, wherever we can find them now, because it is that simple, because now we've got a processing power that can allow us to do that. What would take weeks and months, we can do in minutes, So it's just the golden era for us, right?
It's interesting, an interesting time. I'm curious, what kind of projects are you seeing coming through your agency right now? What kind of software? I mean, obviously everything's AI based because you can't build software without AI now.
Well, I think yeah, that's true. I mean, but I think at the same time, we finally got out of the point where like leading as an AI product is like finally whatever. I mean, like you said, it's so embedded. And I worked through the decentralized web version of that, the crypto, where everything had to have crypto in it for a long time too. And it's like, well, okay, so now we know that everything's deplatformless and it has AI and it's compostable. So we're through that. A lot of what I'm seeing now, as far as new opportunities, really come down to like it's acquisition continues to be a big deal again. So like products related to acquisition and content building is one side of it. And also we're seeing a rise in management systems because now with AI, I think it's a lot faster for companies to like come in and get new CMSs, new LMSs, new CRMs, and just move away from legacy products completely because integrated AI can be done so quickly with these new solutions. Those kind of keep coming up. The other one that I think is really interesting is an overarching trend I'm following. I think that the internet is becoming is very much decentralizing and moving away from primary platforms like Google and X and Facebook and LinkedIn here, where everybody's watching on this. And it's definitely moving more into serving you model. What I mean by that is like the internet's coming directly to people, and you're seeing seeing content like now that talks a lot about how younger generations are using AI as an operating system to run their life. So they may not even prompt to bring information to them, where the older generation is treating it like the search bar. In either of cases, on both sides of those horseshoes, people aren't going out to the content and the platforms anymore. So you are starting to see like tools that are like both content and messaging serving that'll take you the information to your audiences. And I think that's the thing that's interesting to me is I think that's the right way. I think that's where we're going. When we really launched the web, we created again this artificial main street environment where everybody came to this main street of a couple of platforms, right?
Yeah.
But all along we knew that the suburbs were going to get built out and everything was going to come back to field selling at some point, where we're coming to the users, coming to the customers. And so I am starting to see more tools gravitating towards that. Are you hearing people talk about this sort of thing? It's something that I'm paying attention to because it definitely changes the way I think about taking companies to market.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is. It's like this fractionalization. Like, what was nice about the Google era was that it was one place to go. We knew what our job was, right? It was very easy in that respect.
Yeah.
We're going to work the keyword game and the 200 algorithm points and the LSIs, and we could do that, right? Now it's fractionalizing again, where you want to build that first 1,000 users. And that way you at least can generate UGC, and you can use some techniques to get to your lookalikes a lot easier, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't even think, again, with the audience building, I don't even think you need to get close to 1,000 anymore. Like you can do it with good 20 to 25. Right. And then from there, like how fast can I get to 1,000 using like AI tools for outreach? A week.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And respondents wise, maybe 300 or so, you know what I mean? So like you can really build quickly.
I'm interested too about this new agentic search engine. I haven't dug in too deep to what's called Felu. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't seen it, but like one of the things we're kind of talking about is figuring out how to hack prompts so that we can like we can search prompts over utilizing search as an intent. Because it's pretty clear to us how we can build audiences and pipeline, but like advancing in the next step to figure out how we can actually find these intent signals faster. So I'm going to check this out here. Yeah, this is wild.
So this idea now that we're going to be wrapping our search, our prompt writing, and our agent building all into a single platform. And this is going to be one of which will probably 10,000 agentic search engines.
Of course, so is it a lot like Perplexity, where it's just a front end on existing models, or do they have their own models that they're using for it?
Yeah, I think they have their own models, and there's some security issues that I was reading about because you got to download it onto your machine, and then it becomes a deep seek issue too. So I haven't started using it yet because I don't have a partition space to do that.
Sure.
But it is the first of what is an obvious thousands of this type of product. Yeah. Even to the point where they're probably branded, like you're saying, there'll be a branded search engine for the primary tools.
Well, it could, like to where you're talking, it could very much become like a Twilio like product. Like, why does it have to have a unified front end when it can just be like front ends available? Even at that, like front ends are really easy to put together today. And I would imagine in the near future, it's going to be really simple to like, we won't have to choose white or dark anymore. Like you can basically choose like a whole variety of like what your UX should look like.
And that you'll be able to designate which LLM you want to call on based on the project that you have, right?
Yeah,
So,
which is what I really like about Perplexity. You know, I think this is an unlock for people too. Like I found that like once it's time to get serious about a prompt, and never Perplexity isn't the space to do any of that on,
right.
but it is the greatest space to compare how models will run your prompts as you're building them out. And it's not just something that I think you can do for a day or two and then be like, oh, I'm going all in on ChatGPT or Claude. I think you run them simultaneously across a couple for a while. um, there's a retraining thing that's happening too with some of the models that I find like GPT seems to be the one that's the least hit with this, but other models I feel like I have to frequently review my prompts and retrain them to make sure that they stick with an identity. Certain things kind of get turned around on them.
Yeah.
So do you see that too? Like, or is that just me? Am I going crazy?
Well, what kind of my system I keep everything to one topic per prompt,
Yeah.
you know, and then
Trying to do the same thing. Yeah. Yeah.
right, and that way, because what I noticed was it would get confused if it's 4 or 5 requests inside the same prompt. Then a lot of times I was getting garbled stuff. So
Yeah.
I mean, that's not everybody does it that way, but that's just how.
No, that's how our NA ends have turned out too. So what ends up happening is you end up having like agents inside of agents that like where they're executing the multiple workflows, and then they kind of like in the same way that you this week's newsletter article was like, hey, we're basically raising kids again here. Like you have to come back when it comes with agents, and you get them through one load of tasks, and you can really get that lined up, and then maybe you can move them into a second subsequent task that's aligned with it, but probably better off having a secondary one doing it because, you know, in the way that we're implementing and changing everything, you just got to do them on those individual levels because certain tasks get taken out completely and we don't even need it anymore. So it's like, I'm having a hard time with pricing and packaging, both for my companies and for clients, because it feels like, again, pricing models should be a lot more fluid. And by the time you really get a static idea around what's a pricing in a package, like it's changed based off of new user data, new user segments and stuff. So I don't think there's a bottom to the decentralization we can do now because we basically unlocked processing power. I like that though, personally.
Yeah, it provides though, like I mean, all this when it triggers this dynamic pricing and being able to change, make it regional or make it role based, or you really have the ability to personalize in a way that's way different. Also,
Yeah, and the cool thing about it is with this, just yesterday I was on with a new client, had brought in a branding and advisory strategist, and they were looking at some of the landing pages we had done, and we're talking about like what the intent of them all was and what the purpose was. And then they were like asking about, one of the questions they asked was like, so on the outflow of this, we asked that we have a form here, on the outflow of this, can we push people into these different audience segments and then move them into different journeys? And I thought, well, actually with this agentic tool that I've been working on now, like we don't even need to do that. We can push them. Every single person could have a completely individualized response, and it can happen so quickly because we can send the agent out. We can look at your social. We can look at exactly the stuff that you've been doing and then move it on a message. But my answer to them was, so I was like, yeah, from an implementation standpoint, I could do this right now and I wouldn't do it in segments. But the more important question became like, well, what would be the point of doing that? And this is, I think, where we're kind of getting caught with some of these use cases now is like, if we can do it, what's the value? For a business to some extent, there is like the value in like putting people into nice boxes. And I say that all the time in like, especially the acquisition side, I want to use the technology to like increasingly move people through a clear process so they feel like they know where they're at and they feel like they know what's going on. There's a level of control on that and an understanding. I think when you combine that level of like being in boxes and knowing where people are going and being in a group with the key other aspect that we see a lot of time, the more we use technology, the more we have to anchor something into a real human experience. Not meaning like, let's put up a video that like talks you through it. Like, let's run you through a quick 3 to 5 minute touch base with somebody, and then you're into the product. That'll like that point of human endearment will carry a long way. when it comes to holding that customer and then having that established with the identity of the brand and everything that's happening. So I do think that's one of the things we keep pushing. And I have to credit Adam Robinson of retention.com and RB2B for that. I was speaking with him once and he mentioned that he's always looking to maximize humanity,
Yeah.
in all of his social and his work. And I thought that's a really great point. As we continue to like market more, we have to be really intentional with how does it anchor in some sort of human experience.
Absolutely.
And then
Yeah.
we win, right? Because then
Yep.
alignment and endearment become easier, I should say.
I love that, and I love it. There's some really interesting tools that are out now, where you can call people through your website to
Hmm.
chat with them, right?
Yeah.
Either through a voice agent or an actual agent. And that's what it triggered for me was, yeah, if they're in this multi-step process, and you say, hey, would you like to talk to somebody, ask some questions? Just click this button, and they'll talk to you through the website. Are you interested in that? And it would be a really
Yeah.
easy way to solve some things immediately.
Well, and we've been talking to agents for a long time, right? Customer
Sure.
service has had AI integrated into it for, I mean, earlier versions of it for quite a long time. And I think I think about that a lot when I think about the proper use, because uh, basically we know we can we being humans can put up with a lot of BS in the agentic process. As long as we know that there's a clear sight that there's going to be something that's going to get done,
Yep.
and we can get to a human if we need to. Like
Right.
those are like that's a clear like kind of indicator for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's the psychographic is that a lot of us just want to get something done, right? Whatever that
Yeah.
task is. If I can
Yeah.
get my task done, get it off my list, I'm happy. If I'm in the middle of it and I can't get my task done, then I want to talk to somebody who's going to help me get my task done, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and it comes down to too, like a lot of what your company and your product is like. Definitely if you're a service-based product, I'm seeing using agentic marketing in general and driving people to a call is awesome. Again, it really cuts out a lot. They don't need to talk to somebody till they do. You know,
Right,
in other fields where we're talking about, I've got companies that are just extensions and like APIs and things like that, where they really have even like a low front end. Like less is less. You know what I mean? They don't even necessarily need to do that. Sometimes we have to like wrangle people in using sequential based marketing and AI to get them to come back to talk to us because we're not able to get enough information from the analytics. So,
right.
it's really, and again, I think the major divider for me there is if you're a service based entity, you want to talk to people. If you're not a service based entity, you really don't need to unless you absolutely need to, and then you just have to have the right options that are there. um, and if you haven't taken the time already to start feeding and building a knowledge center about who you are and what your business is, you probably should do that, because everything,
Absolutely.
all
Yeah.
of these micro, agentic workflows or micro agents or prompts in themselves all live off of that one main thing. And
Yep.
that's almost become like it's totally different than a CMS, but it really is a lot like, working with a VA or training like or working with a child and being like, this is the rules of this family. This is who we are. This is what we stand for. And you have to
Yeah.
continually say it for 18 plus years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Well,
it
to your point, yeah, FAQs, question and answers, fundamental product offerings, types of services, those things should all be listed out so that they're crawlable and GEOable, right?
yeah, yeah. And it's easy then to, I mean, ultimately, it's been over a year for me where like the content unlock has always been like, go to the work you do. If you're building those knowledge centers for the purpose of like documenting what you do and making it easier to work with you, they also become the best source of content for you,
Yep.
like I said, with the newsletter. And then it's just a matter of like looking through it, either looking for commonalities or I think the things that really inspire people.
Right.
And that's kind of like, I think when it comes down to it, two of my main things with clients as well is we either want to lull people into just a feeling like we know what's going on and this is great, similar to buying a car or a home. Nobody super loves either of those things, but they
Right.
super love the outcome. And there's a very clear path that walks you through all of it. Or you just make it really fun and exciting. And that's like, I think we're moving away from the days of the content run social launches that like really drive up a lot of FOMO and excitement, but you can still replicate that. by adding in those human elements, where
Right.
it comes. It's just in a different form now. So I think to me, it's always interesting to talk to others because I'm seeing so much value in the inside of what we do. You know what I mean? Like in the research, in the editorial process, in the repackaging, and the structuring and positioning processes. And process keeps coming up because like it's processing power. You know what I mean? If I feel like if I'm doing it for anything beyond that, like then it's really not using its primary value. Maybe someday we can get to those edge cases, but for now, I'm just going to keep taking processing power.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and being able to just keep using that lever and that time savings, right? I mean, that's what's just amazing. Well, Grady, I really appreciate your time, and I'm grateful that you took the time to have a conversation with me.
Of course.
If
Yeah.
people want to get connected with you and have a talk about AI and marketing, how do they do that?
Yeah, the best place to connect with me is on LinkedIn, but I'm available on all socials just at my name, at Grady Teske. LinkedIn is where I'm probably most accessible. Feel free to strike up a conversation. I do create content on YouTube every single week. That's becoming increasingly more tactical. I'm just showing, honestly, I'm doing a lot of the workflows that I'm using this week and then showing how I'm positioning it. But I try not to speak as a developer. I try to think more as somebody who builds teams, this is how I'm replicating this internal team behavior now with a agentic tool rather than a person. So you can check me on YouTube at Grady Teske. And if you enjoy that, I would say also to look at those two places. I do have the book coming out later this year that I'm really excited about because as we've talked a lot with the agents, a lot of what we do as a CMO here is really about building teams. It's about building culture and systems. And having exposure to all these different companies that I've helped build somewhat helps me build my own companies a little easier. But what it does put me into tune is really those struggles we have as a founder that help us understand what we're actually doing. So Build Distribution is not actually a book about the best ways to build a business. It's kind of the best way to find alignment with yourself as you're building, to focus on the build process, and ultimately how the benefit of that, doing this and building businesses, brings us into a sect, pulls us close to the people we care about, people that hopefully drive revenue on a consistent basis. So connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd love to share a little more about that and understand too what you're doing as well, because I'll say everything, I do feel blessed that a lot of what I know is built off of people coming to me and then me trying to think about how would I approach it. And that fuels me to create in different directions. It's always experimentation.
I love it. Well, yeah, and put me on the list so we'll have you back on the show when the book's imminent, and I'd love to talk about what you got going on in the book.
Perfect. Sounds great. We'll connect then in around November. So
sounds good, Grady. I hope you have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.
You too. Thanks, Emmanuel.
Okay. Well, I hope you got some value from a conversation today. I think the biggest takeaway is, it's a very dynamic space. It's a very technical space, but we have to remember that there need to be touch points in a marketing campaign for the human to be human to human with the prospect and the soon to be client or customer. So my hope for you is that you take some time today to test a couple of AI tools so that you can get some time back in your day and use that time to continue to upskill or spend with your friends or your family, and to get outside and get some time out away from the screens in a natural setting. It's Emmanuel Rose, and thanks for joining me on Marketing in the Age of AI.
Thanks for listening to Marketing in the Age of AI. Be sure to subscribe wherever you heard this podcast so you never miss a future episode. Your copy of Authentic Marketing in the Age of AI is available at Amazon.com or EmmanuelRose.com. You can also connect with Emmanuel on LinkedIn. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.